exact, but around 1425 BC. So you're talking about 300. You've heard me say many times that Israel was under judges for 250 years. Sometimes I'll say 300 years. It was somewhere between 250 to 325 years, depending on who the last judge was. I believe it was Samuel. Now, we're going to go through the books of the Kings. And the whole reason of this is because God tells Moses when he brings them out of bondage after 400 years in the wilderness, he gives Moses a law, and he says, if you go after these idol gods, go after any gods, he said, I'll send the sword, the famine, the pestilence, over and over, all the time you're a kingdom. And they were a kingdom for about 510 years under kings. So all the time they were they were a kingdom from the first king Saul, the first man king. God was their king, according to the 12th chapter of 1 Samuel. God was their king, but Saul is the first man king, and of course, he's of the tribe of Benjamin. He's of the wrong tribe, so God has to repent himself that he makes Saul king. Now, God doesn't find a Baptist church and walk down the aisle and cry and weep and say, I'd like to repent for making Saul king. I just repent. Repent means to turn. He had to turn from Saul because Saul comes from the tribe of Benjamin. Benjamin is the 12th son of Jacob. The king will always come from Judah. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet till Shiloh come. So the king has to come out of Judah, and Jesus is the Lion of Judah. And when God rejects Saul there in the 15th chapter of 1 Samuel, he says, Samuel, go down to the house of Jesse. In Bethlehem, Judah, I've chosen me a king among his sons. And he goes down there, and he goes through the process, and he names David his king, and David comes out and he anoints him as king. And he's the 8th son of Jesse. Now, this is the split kingdom we're going to go through. This is the kingdom of Israel. Starts with Saul around 1095 BC. And it ends with Zedekiah, the last king of southern Judah. In 586 BC, there were 3 deportations. One in 605 BC, and one in 597 BC. And then these were peaceful deportations because Israel had been put under Babylonian rule as a vassal kingdom. Vassal means a servant kingdom. They were just a province as of that point under the sons of Josiah, under his sons and his grandson Jehoiakim. Josiah's sons were Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah, and Jehoiakim was Jehoiakim's son. So under these last 4 kings, these were actually vassal kings of the Babylonian Empire. That's why Nebuchadnezzar got real bent out of shape, upset when they started seeking refuge in Egypt, because Nebuchadnezzar was their protector. He had every right to come down and attack Israel. Well, God arranged all this because Israel keeps going after Baal and the Grove. Baal and Grove. Now, these are the 2 gods, key gods that they go after. And they were all the same as every other fire and tree goddess of the world. It's just that these are the key gods that Israel went after because when Ahab, we're going to get to the 16th chapter, 1 Kings 16. When Ahab marries Jezebel, her father is Ethbaal. He's a priest of the Ashtaroth and a priest of Baal. And that's one of the systems in Tyre that kept this fire worship alive and well, and along with Babylon. These were the 2 key cities that kept it alive and well. And they were the same system. And of course, Jezebel marries Ahab, brings it down into northern Israel, and they begin to worship Baal and make that the national god and goddess of northern Israel, and make Israel I call it a Roman Catholic state, because it is the Christ Mass system that was brought into the church in 325 AD under Constantine. It's the same thing as Baal in the Grove. And the reason we're going through the Old Testament, the reason we're going through it is we want to see God scattering Israel all over the earth because of this Baal worship He said, I will send the sword, the famine, the pestilence, and the last thing of all I will send is the beast. The beast is Babylon, the Babylonian lion. There in Daniel, the 7th chapter, it is the Persian bear, it is the Persian mead bear, and it is also the Grecian leopard, and then the fourth beast, the beast with iron teeth, and it devours all the other beasts, and that's the Roman Empire, later on instituted into Roman Catholicism. Don't want to go into that much right now. But because Israel was a nation for 500 years under kings, and they kept going after Baal and the grove. Of course, Baal, when you look up the word Hercules in McClintock and Strong, or in Hastings, Hercules, they'll tell you that was the Tyrian Baal. That's what Hercules was. And Tyrian means it comes from Tyre. That's where Jezebel married into Israel. And the grove was Venus. And Venus and Hercules, they were consorts. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. That's the best way to put it. And in mythology, husband and wife. And all these gods had children. Oh, by the way, when I was young, I thought Shintoism, I would hear Shintoism as ancestor worship. I thought, how ridiculous. But it's all ancestor worship. What they did is they named their gods after their ancestors, Nimrod, or Cush, or Ham, or how about Adam and Eve? And that's actually where these gods come from. It's ancestor worship that began at Babel. Babylon mothered all idolatry. Revelation 17:5. It all started at Babel when they said, let us make us a name. That's their doctrine. And at Babel, when you begin to research this, at Babel, this was the beginning of demons. But demons was not some spirit. It was a God-man. That is what Hercules was, and Adonis, and all of these were, they were God-men. And of course, God is the word theos in the Greek. It's the word Elohim in the Hebrew. And they both mean a judge or magistrate. And when God says, thou shalt not, Eve said, I'll be the judge of that. And she began to distribute fortunes. Another definition for demon, daemon, means to distribute fortunes. Distribute fortunes. Fortunes. And that's what she did, distributed the fortunes of the tree. Now this all began at Babel. And all of these gods were sun gods. The male deities were fire gods. And their birthday was December the 25th. This is why I'm teaching on Christmas all year long. That's because all the gods that Israel went after while they were a nation were fire gods, and all the female deities were tree deities. And it doesn't matter what city-state you go into, Babylon mothered it all at Babel on self. This is the beginning of the Babylonian system in Genesis 11 and verse 4. It all goes back to there. Now, I want us to get definitive. I've already gone through some of the things that Israel did about Baal and the grove. They had many of these gods. They had the gods all around them. They had the gods of Moab, which was southern Jordan, and the god of Moab was Shemash.